I would like to start this lesson off with a guitar playing fact. The open position is not just for beginners. Even the best acoustic guitar players in the world that know every single chord and every single scale, they still play open chords and open scales. And the reason is they sound good. So in this lesson, I want to show you how the masters use the open position to play amazing acoustic guitar fills. Now, to get you playing tasteful acoustic guitar fills today, what we're going to look at is three different things. We're going to take a look at open position scales. We're also going to take a look at a concept called cross picking, which I think you're going to love. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to use the blues scale to get some chromatic lines. So here's how it works. This is how you add fills to your acoustic guitar playing. So first thing you got to know is that for every single chord, and I'm really talking about open chords today, but this goes for all chords, but for any chord, there is a scale that goes with it. And we're going to be using the pentatonic scale. So if you're playing an open major chord, that is going to be the major pentatonic scale. And if you're playing an open minor chord or a minor chord, that's going to be the minor pentatonic scale. So every single chord gets its own scale. Now, to develop your ability to play fills on an acoustic guitar, we're going to take a look at a great classic song. We're going to look at Stand By Me. Now, I personally love using Stand By Me as a vehicle to practice chord concepts because there's only 4 chords, and 2 of those chords you actually get to double. You play them for 2 bars through. So that'll give you a little bit of extra time to work on these chord concepts. So let me show you a basic version of Stand By Me right now, and I'm not going to add any fills here. I'm just going to play it just chord strumming, just so you can really see how this song originally went. Let's check it out. So that's the basic version with no fills right there. And let's talk about what we're going to do with each chord to get you playing fills. So the very first chord of the song is the G chord. Now I'm playing it like this. You might be playing it like this or like this. Doesn't really matter as long as it's a G chord. So grab your G chord, that's the very first chord of the song, G major. Now, like I was saying, for every chord and for every open chord, there is a scale that goes with it. So G major is going to get G major pentatonic. So here's what G major pentatonic would look like in the open position. Here's the chord, here's the scale. So now you know the G chord and you know the scale that goes with it. But now, what do you do with that scale? One of the things we're going to check out is a concept called cross picking. And cross picking is a fantastic way for you to start adding fills into your playing almost immediately. So essentially how cross picking works is you take one note, you play that one note, then you play another note. Then you go back to the first note, then you go to a new note. Then you go back to the first note, then a new note. Back to the first note, then a new note. So it's like you're always coming back to the same note. Now you can do this with a scale, but you can also do this with a chord. And let's start doing this with a chord, just to really show you how this works here. So if I've got my G major chord right there, I'm gonna make the highest note here, the high E string, 3rd fret. I'm gonna make that the note that I always come back to and the note that stays constant. So I'm gonna start off, let's go hit the big E string with a downstroke, and I'm gonna come up, hit the high E with an upstroke. So like I said, the high E is the note I'm going to keep coming back to. So now on the right hand, I'm going to play the A string back to the high E, D string back to the high E, G string back to the high E. See, that's how I went E, A, D, G. And every single time I'm doing the 3rd fret on the high E string, or the highest note in that G chord, in between. So this is all cross picking right here, right? See, I'm constantly coming back to that high E string. Notice that upstroke is in between every single note. So that's the basic concept of cross picking. You're always coming back to the same note. So let's bring our scale back in, because that's where cross picking gets really interesting. So let's try this for a second here. Let's try taking the G major pentatonic scale. Let's start off at the low E string here, and we're gonna do a cross-picking move where we ascend the scale from the 3rd fret on the big E string. So again, if I go up the scale from here, it was, right? So if I do that, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 3 on the E, open A, 2nd fret on the A, and then the open D string. So just up 4 notes of that major pentatonic scale. Now, let's do it cross-picking style. So put your pinky, 4th finger, up on the 3rd fret of the high E, and let's make that the cross-pick note that we always come back to. So we start with that 3rd fret on the E, then we cross-pick. Then we do the open A, and then we cross-pick. 2nd fret on the A, cross-pick, and then the open D, cross-pick. So I've gone up, and every single time I'm plucking that high E string. See, that time, I actually missed the string there and hit the G string, but it still sounded great, right? As long as you're getting that upstroke or that cross-pick note in between every single one, it'll sound great. So that's gonna be our ascending lick for the G chord. So do that a couple times. You've got G, give it 1 strum, and then we do the cross-pick. One more time, the cross-pick. Like I was mentioning in this song, a couple chords are doubled. G is actually one of those chords. So let's start off with this. You're gonna do 1 strum pattern on the G chord, and on the 2nd G chord, you're gonna add that fill in. So the strum pattern I'm doing here is just the basic down, down, up, down, up. One more time, that's down, down, up, down, up. And then right after that, I'm gonna throw the cross-picking line in. Let's check it out. Now that sounds pretty cool to me. That's a lot cooler than just sitting here doing 2 full strum patterns of G, but it takes up the same amount of time rhythmically, right? Okay, G. So that is the fill we're gonna start off with here, the ascending cross-pick line. So that's the G chord. Again, strum pattern, cross-pick. Now, the 2nd chord in the song is E minor. Here's how I'm playing it right here with my P symbol, fingers right here. And E minor is gonna get a scale that goes with it as well. So E minor, that's gonna get the E minor pentatonic scale. Like I said, you just take the chord name, match whether it's major or minor, and add scale to the end. Now this shape is actually gonna be exactly the same as the G major pentatonic scale. So if I've got my E minor here, the E minor pentatonic will be 0, 3 on the E, then you got 0, 2 on the next 3, 0, 3 on the B, 0, 3 on the high E. So it's exactly the same scale as the G major. And again, that's one of those things that if you're right off the bat kind of confused by that, check out the free gift I have at the end of this lesson where we dive a little bit more in depth into scales. I just don't have a ton of time in this lesson to break it all down, so you're definitely gonna wanna watch that video. So one more time, I've got the E minor chord and I've got the E minor scale that goes with it. Let's get a cross-picking lick that we're gonna do inside of this E minor chord here. So now in the E minor chord, right, and the scale, I've got the open high E string as a note that's very good to grab because I don't have to have a finger on there, right? It's just the open string. So let's use that as the note that we return to while we're cross-picking this thing. So if I've got my E minor chord right here, I'm gonna come back to the high E string every time. Let's try this. Let's just go up the first 4 notes of the scale. So I've got open E, cross-pick note, 3 on the E, high E, then the open A, cross pick, and then the 2nd fret on the A with the cross pick. So Sped up, that's... One more time. And I know it looks like I'm holding my E minor here at the beginning, and I am, but I'm not actually thinking of like strumming the whole thing. I just like to keep it there because it is gonna be there. I just got there from a strum pattern, so my fingers are already there, so I just practice it like that. Start with them down, and try doing the fill starting with it down. So if I put the E minor together, just like the G, I've got one strum pattern, and then I get one up the first 4 notes of the scale. Let's do that again. So E minor. Now, let's put G and E minor together so you can start to hear the effect we're getting here. So G, E minor. Pretty sweet. I personally love the sound of that kind of guitar playing, where it's not just straight strumming, but there's some tasteful fills in there. That's what it's all about as an acoustic player. So next we've got the C major chord. So there's my open C major chord right there. And if I play the scale that goes with it, that's going to be box 4, or the C pattern of the pentatonic scale. So look like this. I got 0, 3, 0, 3, 0, 2, 0, 2, 1, 3, and 0, 3. And like I said, that's the C pattern or box 4, depending on what system you use for naming the pentatonic scales. C major pentatonic. Now, the hard part about this section of the song, the C chord and the next chord coming, the D chord, is that we don't have quite as much time because there's just one bar or one strum pattern on each chord. So you're gonna have to get your fill in pretty much immediately. There's no down, down, up, down, up, you know, then straight to the fill. We got to go straight to the fill. So now in this C chord here, we also have the open high E string. This is one of the cross-picking tricks that I really like to take advantage of. If there's an open string anywhere in the chord or the scale, that is a good one to use for cross-picking. So let's try this. Let's go from the lowest note of the C chord, then I'll get the open high E for my cross-pick. Now I'm going to ascend the pentatonic scale from here. So I have the open D string, 2nd fret on the D string, and then the open G string. That'll be our first 4 notes. So, and if you can, try to hold your other fingers on the chord as much as you can. I know that's a little awkward, but if we add our cross pick in, so high E between every single one of those. One more time. So we just start off right into the cross pick, ascend. And that's our C chord. Next, we've got our D major chord right here. Classic, good old D. Absolutely love this chord, one of my favorites. And the D pentatonic scale looks something like this. The D major pentatonic, we're gonna go 0, 2, 0, 2, 0, 2. Now this spot right here gets a little bit weird. It would be normally on the G string where we're playing the next note, but that'd be below the open fret. So what we're actually gonna do here is we're gonna get an extra note on the D string here. So I'm gonna add 4 on the D string. So the D string is 0, 2, and 4. And then I'm just gonna get the 2nd fret on the G string. Just 1 note on the G string, 3 notes on the D. So I just took the 1 note on the G, put it on the D string. So, and then the final 2 strings, open 3rd fret for the B string, and then open 2nd fret for the high E string. So that is our D major pentatonic scale. So if I go back, grab my D chord. Now what I'm gonna do for this one, just like the C, I'm just gonna be going up the first 4 notes of the pentatonic scale, starting from the root. There's the root right there on the D string, so it's gonna be 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So that's the open D string first. Then I go to the 2nd fret, and you notice my first finger just comes off the D chord, but I want to try to leave the rest there. So 2nd fret. Now I'm going to use my 4th finger, my free finger, to play the 4th fret on the D string. And our final note is the 2nd fret on the G. And I've got my second and third finger hanging out there the whole time. So let's make that highest note in the D chord our cross pick note, and we get, and there's our D chord. One more time. Now let's try putting those all together, and let me show you how amazing this sounds. It's gonna blow your mind. Now, one thing I wanna say right before I do this is the fact that we are here to play music, right? And fills are not necessarily the most musical thing out there. They're extremely musical when used the right amount. But if you do too many fills, it doesn't sound like music anymore. It starts to happen where you don't carry the tune, it's called, or nobody will recognize what you're playing if it's all fills. So you have to play sometimes chords, sometimes scales and licks and stuff. And it really comes down to you as the player for when you want to go between the two. But one thing I want to say about this piece, if I was going to play this, I do exactly what we're doing for the G and the E minor strum pattern, then fill on the second strum pattern. But for the C and the D, you only have one bar of C, one bar of D. So what I might do is the first time through the progression, do a fill on C, but not on D. And then the second time, do the opposite. Don't do a fill on C, but then do the fill on D. Just so it's not constant fills, and you get a little bit of chord strumming in there as well. Because, like I said, it's the duality. It's both that you want to have in there. It's not all fills, and it's not all strumming. It's the perfect combination of the two. So let me show you a little example here, playing it how I would play it. Exactly the same licks. So. Again. That time I might have even actually just thrown in two fills on the D chord and not done anything on the C chord. And you know what? I liked that. That actually sounded pretty great in there. So if that's ever happening to you, where one chord, you're just strumming on it, don't force yourself to do a fill on every single chord. You want to be able to do fills on every chord so you have the ability to do it when you want, but it's not like in a 4-chord song. Every single chord gets a fill. Like I was saying, you want to use them tastefully. So those are some great examples of an ascending cross-picking lick. Now, the next thing I want to do with you guys is I want to show you some descending cross-pick lines because I find them to be very useful as well. So we go back to G major and the G major scale here. So we were ascending the scale to get our cross-picking line. Let's try descending. So we're going to make the cross-pick note we always come back to, the 3rd fret on the big E string. So that's going to be our note we come back to. So check it out. If I go something like this, I'm going to go, and I'm going to play this high E string, 3rd fret. I go back to the E. Now I'm going to go open high E. I'm going to start going down the scale. 3rd fret on the B, and then the open. So it's like, so I descended 1, 2, 3, 4, the highest 4 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Sounds pretty cool if I strum it. Love that. So cool. So let's go to our E minor chord next. And let's take the same move here where we're going to descend 4 notes. And let's use those 4. Let's go open high E string. Like I said, open string, always good one to hit. We're going to come back to the big E between every note here. So I've got big E, small E. Big E, 3rd fret on the B. Back to the big E, then I get the open B. Back to the big E, then the 2nd fret on the G. All right, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm sticking the cross pick big E between all of those. One more time. Love the sound of that descending cross pick line. One of my favorite sounds. So let's go over to the C chord. So I've got my C, and let's do that same thing. So we're going to take the lowest note of the C chord, the root. That'll be our cross pick note we return to. And let's take the highest 4 notes of the scale. So 3 on the high E, open high E, 3 on the B, and then the 1st fret on the B. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. Very cool sound. And the D chord, we'll get. So the top of that D chord, our 4 notes are going to be 2 on the high E, open high E, 3 on the B to the open B, and we're going to use the open D string as our cross pick return note. So almost sounds like a needle in the damage done there for a moment. Neil was probably thinking the same thing. So there's our D chord. So let's check out the whole thing, and I'll put the fills in every time. So like I said, in a realistic situation, you're probably going to do a combination of ascending, descending. Give it a try. It sounds so cool. Now, the last thing that I wanted to talk about in this lesson was using the blue note to play some fills. There's a lot of really cool old style licks like that you've probably heard before. Very familiar sounding licks, always involving the blue note of whatever scale you're in. So if I'm in this G major pentatonic scale, or the E minor for that matter, the blue note is right there. It's that first fret on the A string, right? That's our blue note right there. We're gonna add that into both of those. So let's try doing that. I love the sound of that. So I've got a G chord, I'm strumming it. After I do one strum pattern, I go root of the chord, and then I slide it from the blues note into the note above it. Play a couple more notes in the scale, however much time you have. So it'll be like. One more time. Let's do it over the E minor. Just do the exact same fill. Sounds awesome, right? So that's 1, slide to 2, open, 2nd fret, open G. And we're doing that for first 2. Next, we've got our C chord. Now for the C scale, remember our blues note is going to be that first fret on the D string. So I would do something like this. I'd go first note on the C chord, and I'm going to take my first finger, slide into the 2nd fret, 1st to 2nd fret's blue note into the regular scale. Play a couple more notes in the scale. Something like that. Now our D chord, this is where we're gonna have to take advantage of that 4th fret on the D string. So my blue note for this scale was right there on the 3rd fret of the D string. So what we're gonna do is we take the D chord, and you hit the open D. You're gonna slide 3 to 4 on the D string. 2nd fret on the G is next, and then I'm gonna go open on the B to the 3rd fret on the B, and that's the D lick. So if I put that in every single lick, it sounds something like this. Now, like I I was saying, in the real world, you're probably not going to be sticking the same fill over every single chord, but the idea is to learn one fill for every chord. Now, you take all the fills we've gone through today, you start chucking them all together, you're going to start getting some really cool sounds. Let me give you a quick example, kind of combining all the concepts we talked about today. Sometimes you can improvise them with a little too. Now, if you ask me, that is how an acoustic guitar is supposed to sound. It's not supposed to be all strumming. It's not supposed to be all fills. It's the joining of the two. And if any of the stuff that we talked about today, and specifically the pentatonic scale stuff, if any of that was new information to you, or it was a little bit confusing, I've got an awesome gift that I think will help you out. I'm talking about this awesome lesson right here. This lesson is called How to Instantly Solo in Any Key, and it will definitely give you the information on how to find any open pentatonic scale. The first thing that this book is going to do is it's going to help you to identify whatever key you're playing in record time. Then it's going to show you a simple formula to give you the ability to solo over any key. And it's 100% yours, and it's 100% free, so make sure you click right here to get this lesson. You'll also find a link to it in the description of this video. Guitar is a very quickly rewarding instrument, and it's lessons like these that are going to show you some really cool things and get you playing awesome stuff without having to learn a ton of music theory.